Hi, welcome. Today we're gonna make a pillowcase and I'm gonna show you how to do that. I have to make one for a very special little girl. Her name is Iris and I found this really beautiful iris fabric. So we're going to use that on the border of the pillowcase, and then we're going to use this cute little swirly purple for the big part of the pillowcase. Now, the pattern that I use is free. It comes from All People Quilt, and there was a million pillowcase challenge at one time. I'm not sure if it's still going on or not, but they were trying to make sure over a million people, kids, would have a nice pillowcase to sleep on. So since this started, All People Quilt has added a lot of pillowcase patterns. These are all free to their website. And this one, you can make the border of the pillowcase have stars. This one uses what we call piano keys. I just printed out a few of these for you to see. This one is a really cool pillowcase that you add a drawstring into over here and it turns into a gift bag. So it will be a usable pillowcase, and it will also serve as wrapping paper. Save the environment. This one is really cute with the little owls on it. Maybe one day we'll try that. And this one has flying geese. And the last one I have here to show you is spools. So the spools go this way or this way, depending on how you see it. It's kind of an optical illusion. Okay. So first we need 3/8 of a yard of nice cotton material that will be for the border. And you need 7/8 of a yard. In this case they use the ladybugs, but we're going to use this nice purple swirly stuff. And this finished pillowcase is going to fit a 20 by 30 pretty much standard bed size pillow. These fabrics that you need to buy need to be 45 inches wide, and our seam allowances are going to be a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm going to first start by cutting a strip from the swirly material, 26.5 inches by 41 inches, like a rectangle. And then we're going to make the iris fabric into a 10 by 41 inch strip. So I'm going to prepare those and iron them, and then I'll be back to show you how to put it together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I did cut out the iris fabric, but I realized that this was the pattern was more than 10 inches, because what's going to happen is the border is going to get folded over like this. So I didn't want to have like half of the irises sticking out. So I made this one wider. I measured, it's about 16 inches. So when it folds, instead of being a 5-inch, it's going to be about an 8-inch. And then this is what's going to show for the border on the pillow. So I'll show you how we do that one, but just to keep it simple, I'd like to show you how we prepare the material. I'm a person who cannot use the green mat and the pizza cutter rolly cutter because I'm allergic to latex. So the company that makes those green mats, I know there's some clear and purple ones, but they can't tell you what's in them because of just copyright, and they can't tell you what's in the cutting mats because of trademark issues. So I've sort of grown accustomed to just tearing my material. Jeannie Beyer is a famous quilter, and I like the way she does things. And when you tear the material, then you're sure that it's on the straight of the grain. You also are sure if you've got good material or not. So I've just done very well by just tearing all my material. So I'm going to make a second pillowcase while we do this same pattern. And what I do is first I cut off all the selvages. I don't want that stiff little piece in my way because it will wash funny and over years it'll pucker. So I tear off all of the selvages. And then just to square it up on my way around, I take a little bit off of the edge, sometimes a 1/2 inch, depending on how they cut it at the store. You end up losing a little bit more. I save this little part here for when I weave rag rugs or when I make string quilts. So this is big enough to sew onto something else, so I'm going to save that. Okay, and then we're over here on the other border. Now this is actually Fabric Traditions 2009, fabrictraditions.com, but I bought this material at fabric.com. They have quite a nice selection, and they're very quick to ship. Since I have a latex allergy, I can't go in a store and shop for my own stuff. So they have very nice pictures. And now I'm going up the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to have a completely square and even piece of material. You know, pillowcases are going to get used hard and washed a lot, and you want them to have the nice straight of grain so they wear well. Okay, so now for this edge piece, little border, we need 10 inches by 41 inches. Now, this material was about 44 inches wide, so I'm gonna first make sure I get that part of the material. Make sure I get the right length and width. 33. Okay, so there's 41. I'm gonna clip that and tear it all the way down. And that's a nice piece for another quilt or some rag rugs. Someday we'll have some videos on those. Okay, so now this is our 41 inch, and I'm going to measure it again because you measure twice, cut once. I'm real good at cutting twice, and it's still too short, my dad would say. So, alright. So, that was 34. That's not the right edge. I'm glad we checked, right? Okay, so this should be the 41. And I live in a small place, so it's kind of hard to have a lot of room and a big table to work on, so I work in the air a lot. Okay, so we're at the 41 inch mark. Now I'm gonna measure down 10 inches. Yeah, 10 inches. Okay, so there we are, 10. Whoop. I will do it twice, like I said before. Okay, 10. Give it a clip and tear. Okay, so we have our 10-inch piece. Now this is a little bit glittery kind of fabric. You can probably see the shiny. And we don't want to iron right on that because it'll probably stick to the iron. So we're going to iron this nice and flat. And I have this great Oliso iron. And if you sit it down and let go of it, it pops up so you can't scorch your material. It also has a ton of, like a whole lot of steaming. Like you can do the poof like that, or you can do the little spray. And there are a lot of settings. So you have a great variety. The really cool thing, the water goes in the side and then you shut the lid. And I don't know how many times I've poured them down the front and the water falls all over, like if I put the iron down. So this one keeps it contained. It even comes with this really great little cup here. And so when you go to put the water in and you open this up, this actually fits right down in, zoom, and you cannot, or you shouldn't, be able to spill the water. So this is a very nice feature for that iron. And I like that it stands up every time I don't touch it. Now when I touch it, it's going to go down. And I'm going to be able to iron this nice and flat. And another thing is sometimes if you stand the iron up like this, which you can, this has a cord that rotates around so you're not going to wear it out. And also, if you don't want to sit it up like that every time you iron, you can do your ironing and then slide it off to the side and it'll wait for you and you can come right back in and keep ironing. And now what's really great about that is it does save some time. If I have this habit of sitting my iron up, it takes like extra effort to pull it down, and if you have a bad back, you'll notice that in a hurry, that it's not really nice to have to keep lifting your iron, so you can just slide it out of the way. Okay, so this first piece is ready. Now we're going to cut the body of the pillow. So I've got some of this pretty purple swirly stuff, and we're going to prepare this the same exact way. We're going to take the salvages off. Before we do, I'll show you who made this one in case you want to look it up. It's by Canvas. It says by Benartex. It's called Swirling Sky, and there's the order number SKY-CM8500 if you're going to try to find this material. I'm sure, and then so here I'm going to make sure I get all of that white off. Go down the sides on my way around, so we're just gonna try to take as little as possible off, but you may have to waste a little bit to get a good straight piece of material. So I'll do whatever it takes to make sure my material is square, because it makes a really big difference, especially if you're making a quilt. But anyway, I'm gonna cut some more off. One more side. I didn't quite do it, so I'm going to take a little more of a bite, because even if I have some scraps left over, then I'll know that they're straight. I could have left that and go into the other end to cut it, but I want to really make sure that my materials that I'm putting back in my bin for other projects are straight. And if I do it the same way on everything, then we're sure we are consistent. Okay, so now we need 41 by 26.5. So let's see which side this is. Sorry, I'm sniffing. Allergies are a nightmare. Okay, so there's 41. So I'm going to put a little clip there and tear that down. If you buy really good material, you want to buy really good material because you want it to last. And if you do, most of the really good stuff tears perfectly straight like that. Okay, so let's see, we need another, the other side we need 26.5 inches. Just want to make sure this is not my 41-inch side. I don't know, I'm going to have to double check. Looks like I had it right, but I just always double check it. Okay, so there's 35, so that must have been my 41. Alright, so then we'll do 26.5 right there. Okay, now I'm just going to press this a little bit. When we are all finished, we're going to really press it good. The sparkly stuff was a little bit wrinkled, so I just wanted to make sure we got that. And since this doesn't have any sparkles on it, we can just iron right on the top. That way you can see what you're doing. Okay, and I've got this rectangular ironing board. I just bought it, and it's really quite nice. I got it from Nancy's Notions, and oh, it makes such a nice job out of ironing quilts and rectangular material. because most ironing boards are not the right shape to iron fabric. It's good for clothes, but that's about it. Okay, so our next step then is we're going to take this 10-inch piece, and it's 41 inches long, and I'm going to lay it on the ironing board like that. I'm going to turn my iron off for a while because we won't need that till we come back and do the final iron. Okay, and now we take our rectangle. It's also 41 inches. And we're going to put the right sides together. I'm going to make them very straight and right on. We don't want any strings laying around in there because you'll feel them when you're sleeping probably. So we'll just get rid of any kinds of strings and threads. Now we're going to take the lower edge and roll it up towards the other side. Up here. So we're going to roll it, and they call this the hot dog or the taco method. And it's really a really easy way to make a pillowcase. I felt some threads there. What's going on? I think they're underneath on the ironing board. Okay, so we're just going to roll it up. Okay, and then we're going to take this piece and get all the edges even. Okay, now we're going to pin it. Okay, so I will go get my pins real quick. Okay, so now we want to make sure these are straight. Okay. Down here so you can see. We're going to make sure we make all three of the pieces are on the same edge. We're going to have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so that's forgiving. I don't want to move this around too much until we get it all pinned. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do the iris one because we want to make sure that that iris falls in the right direction. Okay. Okay, so here's our 41-inch rectangle. And now I have to make sure that this iris will land on the outside of the pillowcase, not on the inside. So I want this piece to fold over and be on the inside, and these pretty irises here to be on the outside. So one way of making sure I get that is to put the right side down on that side. Okay, so when we turn it, that's how it's going to be. This is the pretty outside, and this is going to be on the outside of this. That's why you want to make sure when we roll this side up, this is going to be on the inside, just like that. It's going to be on the inside. So we're going to get the strings off. Now we're going to make sure they're nice and straight. When you tear the material, it does sort of make a little bit stringy, but they all stay together, so it's not too hard to get all of the strings off in a quick way. Alright, we don't want any of this like stringy stuff. You know, I always wash my material first because there's a lot of chemicals involved in processing cotton, and one of them is formaldehyde. And I have a lot of allergies, and I don't personally want to be exposed to formaldehyde, so I wash it off. So I wash and dry all of my cotton materials in hot water. That way, if people have dust mite allergies and they have to wash their bedding in hot water, we know that it won't shrink and the colors will stay, and when you give it to them, you're never going to have to worry that it didn't wash well and they don't want to tell you or something. Okay. Alright, so there we are. We've got it ready to flip this up. Like that. And see, I had to piece this iris material because the stripe did not run the same way as the 45 inches that we were going to use to get the 41-inch piece. So that's a little complicated, but anyway, I pieced it and I made the stripes match and everything, so it looks seamless when you look at the iris side. Alright, so I'm just going to pin this. Alrighty, now what we're going to do is we're going to go sew down here a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and we'll go over to the sewing machine and we'll do that. Okay, now we're over at the machine and we're going to sew down the 1/2 inch seam allowances on both pillows that we put together. But before we do, I need to make a bobbin with the same color thread that I'm using on the top, and I usually use neutral threads, either like a gray or a brown or a gray brown, or you know, rather than buying 50 different colors of things, this will still look really nice. So this is a Genome New Home Professional Memory Craft 6300, and this machine is amazing. Let me just show you what I did here. I took the bobbin, and a lot of times there's a bobbin winder on the top or down in the machine, but this one's on the top, and then you take this little thing and hold it in there, and then you press here and the bobbin will wind. Now what's really great about this machine is it has 2 motors, so I can actually sew at the same time I'm winding my bobbin, which is really good, because sometimes you're just madly sewing lots of straight lines and stuff, and you run out of bobbins. But rather than unthread your machine, you could actually have a second post over here where you can have more than one. Let's see if I can show you. Okay, so there are actually 2 places to put cones or bobbin or spools of yarn. So anyway, we got the bobbin in here, we push this over and we press this button, and away it goes. And I just usually clip it along the way, and it's going to wind that thing and shut off when it's full. I don't even have to watch it. Ta-da! And I can take it off and start another one, but we only need one for this project, so I'll put it in the case, and then there's a little thing that has to go under. The thread has to go under. There we go. And you know, if you were going to wind a whole lot, you wouldn't have to undo the thread that you just did, but it's really no trouble to thread this machine, and it's got a great needle threader here that works really well. And you just put the needle down and back up and slide all your bobbin thread out, and then you always want to make sure that the needle thread is underneath the foot, and you want to leave yourself a tail because you're going to give that a little tug when you start sewing. Okay, so this was our swirly purple pillowcase. I'm going to put it at the 1/2 inch seam allowance. We got a foot pedal here, and I'm going to hold on to the thread, just a gentle tension until it goes through. Okay. And it might be a little noisy till we get it all done, but just hold it tight. I'm also going to trim this. I don't like to have extra threads anywhere because it's too big of a job at the end to trim them all. So I trim them as I go. Not a good idea to run over a pin, not even once, because you'll throw the timing out of the machine and that's going to cost you. Okay, this machine has little scissors in it, so it actually cuts the thread. That's a real treat. Okay, so what I'm doing when I take it off is I'm making sure that all 3 pieces are sandwiched in there. I don't want to have any possibility that somebody's not in there. Okay, so they're all in there. And we'll just sew this one real quick while we're at it. Double check that one. Get rid of any extra threads we don't need. Okay. They're all in there. Here's the magic. We're going to reach in and pull out the middle piece of material from this tube that we made. Ta-da! And now the front and the back of the pillowcase border is sandwiched in there, and you don't see any seams at all, and they're both nice clean seams. Okay, so just want to double check that nothing feels twisted, that everything's nice and flat. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the other one. Okay, you pull the body out of the tube. I guess that's why they call it either a hot dog or a taco method. There are lots of methods to making the pillowcases. I like this one. It washes well. The seams don't rip out, and I don't know, just seems easy. It always looks nice too. Yeah, when you make pillowcases for people, they're really great for people who use the masks, those CPAP masks for sleep apnea, because sometimes their pillows get wet with the moisture in the night, and instead of changing the whole bed to match your pillowcase, you can have lots of pretty pillowcases for people. And also, it's good for kids when they're sick, or just kids anyway. And sometimes I like a big pillow on my sofa when I want to take a nap instead of a, you know, a nice pretty little square one. So I keep pretty pillows all over my house now. Okay, I'm gonna go press this, and then we're gonna sew the sides and the back, or the top, and then we'll be done. Okay, so I'll be right back. Now the pattern that we have tells you that we're going to make a French seam to finish off the seams, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do a zigzag, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is pin our borders so they match nice. You put your fingernail in there, and you can feel the ridge that it makes between the border and the body of the pillowcase. So you want to stick a pin in there, and that's, you know, pretty much how you're going to make sure the border is nice and even. And so I always go down to the end of the border, right here. So I put a pin in the very end of the border. Now that I don't want to really put pins in that direction, but that makes sure that this is going to be straightened together. And then put a couple more pins in there if you want to, but I don't really like to do that because I just don't think you need to. Okay, so I'm going to take that one out and put the foot down. Alrighty. Now, you'll see how I have just a little extra over here. I'm going to eventually cut that off, so I'm going to make a few stitches at the end. And since this is going to be like where you have a lot of wear and tear trying to stuff the pillow in, I'm going to stitch back and forth over that end piece, like a lot, 3 or 4 times. Okay. Then I'm going to get down here to where my border ends. And I'm going to give that a little extra tack too, just because it's a stressor point. And I'm going to hold my edges together. And sew right down this seam. I'm going to stop right before the end, put the needle down, and spin the pillowcase around. Now this piece, we just want to line up the edges. And with the needle down, you won't be pulling it out of the foot, out from under the foot. And see, we just want those edges to all match. And we'll sew that seam right on down. Again, this is a stressor point, so at the end we're going to tack it back and forth a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to cut it off. So the next step that we're going to do, well, how about if we work this pillowcase at the same time? It'll save a lot of time. One thing you're going to do if you make these for gifts for Christmas or for like people in the hospital, you're going to want to work in production. So if you can do all the steps all at the same time while you're making 10 of them, or you know, even 2 of them, it saves you a lot of time, and all the steps will be the same, and you'll end up with all of them done really quickly at the end. Okay, so we pinned the border, and now we're gonna get these edges nice and even and tack it back and forth. It's a good idea just to take a little time with that kind of stuff, and you can speed and make up your time while you're sewing around the rest of the pillowcase. Get to the border and get that pin out of there. Another little tack back and forth. Any place that there might be some extra stress on the pillowcase, we want to make sure it never comes apart. And away we go. The needle go down in, and we'll turn it. Get all our edges nice and straight. Put the foot down. We tack that back and forth, and cut the thread. There's just one more step. This is a great project for kids to learn sewing too, and what we're going to do is cut off just about everything here except 1/4 of an inch from our seam. Just be careful you don't cut into it. And if you have a nice flat spot on your sewing machine, or a little table where you can work, that's great. And I usually cut an angle here on the corner because it helps turn the pillowcase to a point. Okay. And if you have a serger, that's great. I have one, but I just wanted to show you how to do it without a serger. What the serger would do is it would cut off this edge and sew a zigzaggy type of seam for you and finish off the edges, just like the inside of most of your store-bought clothes. Okay, so but this is, you don't need a serger to do this, and it's really good for kids to learn how to use the zigzag part of the machine. And sometimes it's just when I have my machine set up for production and I have the serger right next to me, I'll just turn and go ahead and serge it and cut it off at the same time. But today I just want to show you how to operate in a simple situation here. I don't have a lot of room in my house, and so everything I do is like on about 2 feet of space. And you know what, whether there's a will, there's a way, and you don't need really big special things to make some very nice things for your friends, your family, and for you. It's a little thick in the seam there, cutting through that border, but that's alright, just for a moment. Okay, so now this machine, I have to look how we set up the zigzag stitch. It has this little stitch thing that flips up, so a zigzag stitch is like number 07. Okay, so then we go down on the machine to 0, 1 is here, and 16 is here, so every time we press this it goes up 1. So 07 is there, and now for the zigzag width you do plus or minus here, and I like to have a little bit good size zigzag, and the length is how close together the stitches will be. And I like them to be pretty close because I want it to finish the seam off and make it so it won't fray. So I want to test that and see how it's going to look. So I just grabbed some scrappy material here. And I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to do it actually on the back so I can see what this stitch is going to look like before I go put it on. So first I'm going to run it on the whole piece of material here. So we'll try this one out. And that's pretty good. It might be a little bit too wide for me, so we'll go down to a 5 and see what that gives us. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but this was the first one, and this one's a little bit smaller, and I don't really think we need to be that close. So let's try this stitch length to be a little bit bigger. Alright, a little bit longer, like. Okay. So that one's, you know, a little bit better. That'll do just fine for what we need. This takes up a lot more thread and a little more time, but I think we'll be okay with something that's like 2.5 on the stitch length on my machine. Okay? So it's always good to test that kind of stuff out first. Now I'm going to put my foot in a little bit here because the zigzag might not stitch right at the very end. Okay, so I'm going to go like a 1/2 inch in, and I'm going to keep this about 1/4 inch into the middle. So my plan is to have the needle go over the edge and kind of finish the edge off. Now I'm going to run it a couple stitches, and then I'm going to back it up to the very end where I wanted to, well, I wished I could have started. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to back it up and make sure it gets the end. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and we're not going to go over the seam line, the seam stitching. You have to, if you go over that with the zigzag part, it's just gonna not make your seams straight. Okay, so we want to stay on the other side of that. This is a good foot for me, so like I'm actually keeping the foot on the stitching line, and then I'm sure the needle's not going to jump over it. When you get to a corner, you want to make sure the stitch is in to the left, okay, because it's going to go to the right and we don't want to come off the material. Alright. Just look how nice that's looking. Okay, so we didn't really need a serger anyway, and the edges are finished, and we didn't have to go through the work of a French seam. Although it's nice to learn that technique, and maybe someday we'll do that. But for now, this serves the purpose. Okay, and I don't have to go over the corner of that because that's going to stay inside. Alright, and while we're here, we'll put the next one in. Production sewing. Now this is, I'm going to bump the needle up to the end of that, and then I'm going to go back and forth to make sure that it does get covered. And then after we get far enough away, we're just going to clip that close to the fabric. See, this goes very fast and it makes a really nice finish. You don't have to use a zigzag or a serger, but the material will probably, yeah, I want it to be on the inside. The material might fray over time, so this just makes sure that your pillowcase is going to last a long time. that off. Now, I want to show you one thing in case you're going to make these for gifts and or like maybe to sell at a craft store or craft show or a boutique or something. You want to be able to brand your stuff and tell everybody who made it and where it came from, and it's not always actually very easy to put your stamp on something. So what I have here is some made in the USA labels, and I also had one of our a label made for our website. Let me see here. There you go. This is greensquiltingandweavingshop.com, and what I'm going to do is just lay them in the seam there. The USA one. That's an important thing. A lot of people want to make sure their stuff is made in the USA. So I'm just going to change my stitch back to 0 here. So we just have a straight stitch. And I'm going to sew over those labels. I'm going to make sure I reinforce the stitching, and I'm staying in the zigzag area. Okay, and I'm going to reinforce the ends. And just like that, you've given yourself some credit of who made the pillowcase. Okay, so now we're going to go back over to the iron and turn these inside out, and then we're finished. We'll meet up with you in a moment. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is turn our pillowcases and iron them. Now, first we're going to do the one for Iris. We're going to make sure all our seams are nice and intact, and we didn't get something like where we didn't run over it right, or all the zigzags are nice. And we're going to press out our corners. This is the very nice corner here. And we're going to do the same on the other side. Okay. Now, since this one's for a gift, I'm going to do an extra special good job of ironing it. Now, this is a little bit wider, I told you, because of the irises being here on the border. I wanted to get all of it. So if you're doing like trucks for a little boy or angels or anything special on the border, you don't want to have to cut it off just because the directions said to use 10 inches of material. Be creative, be practical, and get the pretty border on there, because it means a lot to that person going to sleep. Okay, so see, this is the regulation size right here. And that's the 10-inch one that I did. So I mean 16 inches. This was 10 inches right here, and you can't see that. Okay, so this was the 16-inch border here. So it folded into 8, and of course when you end up with the seam allowances, it goes down to about 7.5 or so. And this was how the pattern stated to do, the 10-inch border, and so it's a little smaller. But if you have something, a really pretty design, then my goodness, you want to make sure you use your material well. Okay, so let's iron this. Get all our seams out. I love this iron, plus it's purple. They come in all colors, blue, yellow, you know, there's like a whole bunch of colors, and in my description I'll leave you a link where you can get one. Okay. Iron away. Now in this case, I'll probably put some nice creases in it. Looks really pretty. I think my little friend Iris is gonna like that. Let's see. I've got a seam in that side, so let me put it the other way. Really clean up your stuff, get the fuzzies off, because, you know, you want to look professional. Right, that's the side without the seam. Feel a wrinkle under there. Yeah. Okay. Alright, I could iron it again, but I kind of like it like that. Okay, so that's how the first one came out. Now let's do the other one. Make sure you get all the seams straight and pushed out. Okay, just iron this part real good. You can poof the steam. I'm just going to touch that lightly. I don't want to get too much going on there with that sparkly stuff. I want to show you something really cool about this iron then. There's a lot of cool features, but there's a little slit here, so if you have something you have to iron like that, look at that, you can get a crease on something like a tie or... Okay, now we've got one for Iris. I'm going to put a pillow in this one. Okay, so there we have it. We've got one for Iris here, my little buddy Iris, and we got one for me. I'm going to try that out tonight. It's going to have sweet dreams on that one because those wonderful dreamy swirls. Okay, hey, thanks for watching, and I hope you make a whole bunch of pillowcases for you and your friends and your family. And watch this space because we're going to do a lot of really cool things that you can do when you have a latex allergy, things that you can make for people who have Alzheimer's, who use, you know, with really pretty fun prints for a person with Alzheimer's, or there's favorite sports teams. And always keep in mind people who use CPAP masks because their pillowcases get wet and you want to make sure they don't get any mold on their faces and stuff. Okay, so I'm looking forward to talking to you again, and thanks for watching. Have a beautiful day.